Hey friends, it's Corey from Hey Let's Make Stuff, and today we are sublimating ornaments for the holidays. Ornaments are a great beginner sublimation project because they aren't very expensive and they are fairly easy to make. So if you're brand new to this, this is a great project to start with. For this project, I'm using 3 different types of blanks: metal, wood, and ceramic. And I've used the same image on all 3 so you can see the difference. So what do we need to make this project in addition to the blanks? So to start, you're going to want to clean your blank using some alcohol and cotton swab. I find that the alcohol does a better job than a lint roller because it gets all the fingerprints and oils and those sorts of things off of hard blanks. Then you're going to need a way to stick your transfer to your blank here. So heat resistant tape, that's one we use all the time. I also have some of this dye trans spray, which I've been using. It's basically an adhesive spray. You spray a little bit on your transfer and then you stick it to your blank and you don't have to deal with tape. So we're gonna use a little bit of that. You're also gonna need butcher paper to protect your press. I like buying my butcher paper in 12 by 12 flat sheets. It's a lot easier than having to deal with the roll. Then a pair of heat resistant gloves. You're also going to need a heat press. For this project, I'm using my Cricut Auto Press. The mat that comes at the bottom of the Auto Press is not sturdy enough to do, especially these thicker ornaments. They end up looking a little cloudy and faded. It really needs a much sturdier mat underneath. So I'm going to be using this wool mat here. It's very, very sturdy. It works really well in my press. I will say the other side that I don't have up is a bit discolored just from the heat of the press, but I've used it tons and tons of times and it's still in great shape, and it provides a really solid pressing surface for the ornaments. If you have a Nomex pad, that will work too. I actually do prefer this wool for this particular project, just because it's even more sturdy than the Nomex pad and it's cheaper, so I'll go ahead and link to it. And then finally, just for the ceramic ornament, you're gonna need a green pad like this, and I will link to it. This goes in between the top platen and your ornament, keeping it from cracking. It's also heat conductive, so if you're using a full bleed image and you want it to kind of wrap around the sides of your ornament, this kind of presses down and it helps get that design to go all the way around the sides of your ornament. You can use the ribbon that comes with the ornaments. Some of them come with ribbon and some don't. I always like adding my own ribbon, so I've got that here. And then you'll need a pair of scissors. Now we need to make our transfers. So I'm gonna pop over to Sawgrass Creative Studio for this project. For this project, I'm using Sawgrass Creative Studio because I'm using my Sawgrass printer. If you are using another type of printer, like a converted Epson printer, you're going to need to use another software. There are a bunch of options for that, and I've linked them in the description below. But for this project, I'm using Creative Studio because I wanted to get those of you who have a Sawgrass a little bit more comfortable in this program. So to start, when you open up Creative Studio, you're going to see this screen here, and you're going to want to make a canvas basically the size of your printable piece of paper. So you can go here to Design Canvases, and they have a bunch of options. I find it easiest to search for the 8.5 by 11 blank portrait canvas here. And now I have a canvas that is basically the size of my printer paper. This is a great place to start when you're creating any sort of sublimation image. So now I'm going to go here to Galleries, and I'm going to go to My Images, and from here I'm going to upload the image that I'm going to use. So I'm going to click on the Merry and Bright ornament, and it's going to be placed on my canvas here, and because the file itself is fairly large, it's going to try and size it to the size of the paper I have. But of course, ornaments aren't this big, so we need to resize it. So go over here. I like working in inches under measurements, and then you can resize to fit your blank. I always make it ever so slightly bigger than my blank is. So for example, I'm starting with these metal blanks. I'm going to make it 3.6. I just like that extra little bit of wiggle room when I'm placing my image on my blank. So we're going to be doing both sides of these. So here's one, I'm going to duplicate it, and we're going to have another. So that's our first ornament. Now I've got 2 more ornaments to make here, so I'm going to make them the size of the ornaments we have, the wood and the ceramic ornaments. So I'm going to duplicate it, and then I'm going to make it 2.8, which is just slightly bigger than the size of the both other ornaments here. Then I'm going to duplicate this 3 more times so I have enough for both sides of my smaller ornaments. All right, so now we have all of our ornaments here on a single page. And these are a little tough because they don't have that circle around them, so you're just going to have to sort of eyeball it when you go to placement, but I've got some tips and tricks for that. So once you have this, you're going to go ahead and print to your Sawgrass. Once you hit print in Creative Studio, it's going to open up the Sawgrass Print Manager. And here you can make changes to your project. So for example, here you can set your substrate. I'm doing 3 different substrates here, so I'm going to choose metal. I was told by the Sawgrass people that this is generally the best like all over setting if your selection isn't here. So I'm going to choose
metal, it's automatically going to select this True Pix Classic paper. That's all you've got, high quality, and the tray. And then it's automatically going to mirror your project because you want to mirror sublimation projects. Under layout, if you're having a hard time getting your images here where you want them, make sure that Print Manager Performs Layout is selected. Sometimes the preserve layout from Designer, especially if you're using your own file that you've uploaded directly to Print Manager, can kind of mess with things. So I found that Print Manager Performs Layout is the best option here. And then I always like to center my image here. If you don't, it will be like up in the corner. And that's fine, but I'm always afraid it's going to get cut off. So I always center it. And then here, we're not going to resize any of this because we did the sizing in Creative Studio, but if you're just using Print Manager, you can change the size of your images here. You can also change with your color. You can change the color mode. I'm going to stick with photographic here. And once you're done, you can print it to your Sawgrass printer.
Okay, so we have our print here, and you can see both sides for each ornament. Now I'm just going to use scissors to cut out each ornament. Let's start with the metal ornament. So to start, you want to clean it, like I said. There's a little bit of alcohol here, just to get rid of fingerprints and oils that might be on your hand, and then wait for it to dry. Like I said, you can use heat-resistant tape, but I'm going to use this spray. So basically, all you have to do, a little shake, and it's just a very light coating here, just like that. And if you want, you can wear a mask. It doesn't smell great. I probably should, but I'm not. And then you can go ahead and place your ornament on top. So because you can't see through the ornament and you can't see through the paper, it's basically a guessing game, but you want the hole at the top, and then you want to make sure the entire ornament is covered here, like that. Now you can see that it's just completely stuck on there, which is great. No tape, no nothing, it works really well. You do want to make sure that when you are opening your press that you're very careful. And it's a little hard to be on an auto press, if I'm being honest, because the lid opens automatically. So usually I will stand there and like make sure it doesn't fly open, because the heat of the heat press does kind of make this spray go away, like it evaporates or something like that. And then sometimes if you're not careful, your image can ghost because the image moves. But if you're really careful when opening your press, you can prevent that. For the metal ornament, you can press both sides at the same time if you'd like. I generally don't, because I find it a little difficult to get the second side lined up really well when the transfer is on the first side. But if you feel like you can go for it, you can do it and you can press it. The instructions for these metal ornaments say 45 seconds at 350 degrees, but I found 60 seconds works better in my press. This is, again, sublimation has a lot of variables, so you might want to do some testing. So I'm going to go ahead and press this for 60 seconds in my press. Now before I do that, because that's way over on the other side of the room, I want to show you the sandwich that I'm going to make. So it's called the sublimation sandwich because it's how you stack everything. So at the bottom of my press, I'm going to put my, my hard pad like this. Then I'm going to put a layer of butcher paper. You can put 2 layers if you'd like. Then I'm going to press, put my ornament with the ornament down and the transfer up like this. And then I'm going to put another piece of butcher paper or 2 on top, and I'm going to press. That's the sublimation sandwich for this particular ornament. And there you have it. We have our first side of our first ornament. Now, if you want to do the back, you do it exactly the same way. I have not found that double pressing the first side really changes the color too much, which is great. If you're using tape, do not wrap it around onto this design because the tape will imprint into the design and it's not cute. And I've got both sides done of the merry and bright metal ornament. I really like how crisp the edges look on the metal. I think this looks really good. Now let's make this wood ornament. The process for this one is actually very similar, so I'm going to start by cleaning it here. I still have a little bit of alcohol on here. Again, this gets rid of all of the oils and fingerprints, so go ahead and let that dry. For this ornament, I'm going to show you how to use the tape. So go ahead and get that centered on there. And you can see that my cutting was not particularly square. That'll work. And then you can use a piece of tape to secure on each side. So the tape on the blank side is not going to be a problem. It's only if you have a sublimated image there that it's going to cause a problem. So for this side, at least, we could just wrap it around the blank, just like this. And I like to do all 4 sides because you don't want it to shift. All right, this is ready to press, so let's talk about that sublimation sandwich one more time. So we're going to do our harder mat here. We're going to do a piece of butcher paper. Then we're going to put the wood ornament with the wood side down and then the transfer on top of that, face down and taped. and then another piece of butcher paper, and that's going to be your sublimation sandwich for the wood ornament. All right, here is our completed wood ornament. I'm actually really surprised at how great the wood actually takes some of these lighter colors. They are bright and they are merry, and they look really good here. This is also a great blank for photos. I find that photos look really good on wood, so this is a good one. All right, let's move on to the ceramic ornament, and this is definitely the trickiest of the bunch. So again, we're going to start by cleaning it off with some alcohol here. Now for this one, I'm going to use the spray again, just because it's a little bit easier. So I'll just spray this a little bit here, just like that, and then place the ornament right on top, just like that. Okay, so the pressing sandwich for this one is a little bit different. So you have your hard mat, and then you have your butcher paper, and then you have your ceramic ornament with the transfer right on top of it, just like this. So if you just put the butcher paper right on top now and put it in your press, there's a good chance that it will crack because the hard platen of the press hits the hard ceramic, and 2 + 2 equals cracking. So instead, you do want to put that piece of butcher paper here because you want to protect this green pad. So like I said before, this is basically a rubberized green pad that is meant to conduct heat. So you put your butcher paper down here, and then you put your green pad on top of it. I like that extra layer of butcher paper because I don't want to get any sublimation ink on my green pad. And then I always put an extra piece of butcher paper on top of that. I'm not sure if it's necessary, but I don't love the idea of that rubber coming into direct contact with my press. So I always use that extra piece of butcher paper. So the sublimation sandwich for this is that hard pad, a piece of butcher paper, your ornament with the transfer on top, another piece of butcher paper, the green pad, and another piece of butcher paper. And then you're going to press this a long time. The instructions for this say 240 seconds at 400 degrees. That's 4 full minutes of pressing. But I didn't find that that was enough. So I ended up doing 360 seconds, and I got a much more vibrant image. So this is another thing where you might have to play around. You may find that the 240 seconds that is recommended works really well with your particular press, or you may decide that you need more minutes. All right, and then our final ornament is done. I've done both sides here of the Merry and Bright ceramic ornament. I think it looks really good. One thing I will say is that the edges of the images on the ceramic are just never as crisp as they are on some of the other blanks. I think it's just the nature of the blank. I'm not really sure what to do about it, but you can see here that the edges just look a little cloudy. I don't know, for lack of a better word there. I think it's still really cute. It's still completely readable, obviously, but it does have a little bit of a softer finish.
I hope you found this tutorial for sublimation ornaments helpful. If so, give this video a like. If you'd like more crafting content, hit subscribe. I'll see you next week.